that was gnawing at me, Ernest, was that I was developing these students, but when I turned around, I noticed that no one was developing me, right? That I was looking for growth opportunities. I was looking to learn how to do things better, how to grow in leadership. And quite frankly, in higher ed, to grow, you have to literally move schools often because the incumbent at that next level is not going anywhere. At least that was my experience, right? So you're moving like across country sometimes. And I was like, this can't be like the way it works for the world. Like there has to be another way.
Welcome to the Psych and Business Podcast. We're here to show you how practical psychology can be useful and make your workplace better. I'm Dr. Ernest Wayde. All right, so today we have with us an expert in design thinking, strategic planning, and coaching. Her name is Dr. LaToya Jordan. Dr. Jordan is the founder of Lead by Design Lab, where she supports clients as they step into leadership roles. LaToya specializes in supporting women of color leaders in higher education by providing them with the foundational tools they need to lead effectively and authentically. LaToya, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Wayde.
I'm so glad that you're on the show. And please call me Ernest.
Okay.
LaToya, I want to hear about the work you do, but I always want to start by asking, tell us about your journey. Tell us about how you got where you are and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, you know what? It is an interesting yet windy road. So I will preface it by saying that I started my professional career in student affairs in higher ed, where I focused on student development. I was so passionate about students and wanted to help them to grow as leaders and prepare them for the world. And so I started in that field and loved it. Mm-hmm. But the thing that was gnawing at me, Ernest, was that I was developing these students, but when I turned around, I noticed that no one was developing me, right? That I was looking for growth opportunities. I was looking to learn how to do things better, how to grow in leadership. And quite frankly, in higher ed, to grow, you have to literally move schools often because the incumbent at that next level is not going anywhere.
Yeah,
at least that was my experience, right? So you're moving like across country sometimes. And I was like, this can't be like the way it works for the world. Like there has to be another way. And so I started to do some research and I fell upon organizational psychology as a discipline. And I just got so interested in. I was like, yes, this is what I'm missing. This is what we should be doing here. We should be, focusing on how to engage me and how to grow me and all of that. And so I made the really difficult decision to leave higher ed at that point and go back to school to study organizational psychology. And in doing so, kind of pivoted to more of a corporate space because that's where those types of theories were kind of taking hold. Yeah. And so then I started into that world and became very passionate about going from student development to employee development, right? Which was it was a natural connecting tissue, but one where I was able to keep my passion, but pivot to the industry and the work that was available at the time. So I moved into work at Pfizer, where I created and led global mentoring for the largest pharmaceutical organization in the world. So that was really like intimidating yet exciting too. Yeah. I mean, something as cool as like matching mentors and creating a mentorship program globally was like really a cool venture for me. And that kind of spawned into other employee development opportunities that I was able to create for the organization. And then I pivoted and moved into the airline industry of all kind of switches. And did a number of different things within JetBlue Airways, where I worked for 8 years, and became an executive where I led things like things that are like behind the curtain, right? Succession planning and all those kind of things, performance management. I started our DEI strategy for the organization. And so then it became a more traditional organizational psychologist within an organization. So that kind of was what led me and kind of put me planted in a role within organizational psychology. But then about a little over 5 years ago now, life was happening for me personally. And I decided to make another transitional decision to leave kind of an in-house role and to start my own practice. And so a mentor of mine told me, well, what are the things that you love about what you do day to day? And once I thought of them, it was coaching and really developing teams to be the most effective that they could be for the organization's kind of goals and mission. And so I hung my shingle there and started to focus on that, in addition to kind of my little personal pet project, which was design thinking.
Yeah.
And so those are the three things that we do at Lead by Design. Is we focus on individual leadership development, team effectiveness, and design thinking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that background. I love that story. I think brings such a diverse background to the work that you do, and I'm a strong believer in bringing all of you and all of your experiences to the work that you do. So I love that you had that very interesting background. I want to hear some stories from higher ed and pharmaceutical and the airlines, but I really want to jump into design thinking. Right? Help us understand what design thinking is, and I also want to hear you talk a little bit about how you integrate it all together.
I'll kind of probably start let me see how I can offer that. So design thinking is a set of tools or mindsets, is what I like to call them, that help to unlock innovative ideas. And it really takes you where you are focused on the human or the customer or client that you are trying to innovate for, and put them at the center of the design process. Whereas normally the design process starts with, oh, I got an idea to do this. Let's, force fit it to this client or customer.
Yeah.
But design thinking turns it on its head and says, let's start with that human and have human connection and empathy for their true problem. And then let's make sure we truly understand the problem, and then ideate and come up with kind of rapid prototypes and tests to see if we're getting closer to understanding and solving that human's problem. And so it was something that kind of fell into my lap as JetBlue was trying to create its own innovation hub within the organization. They asked me to go out to Stanford to learn the process. Stanford University is where it's kind of the epicenter of design thinking globally. And so I learned the process and became so enamored with it, and became really such a believer of the mindsets that I started to study under some of the Stanford professors and became one of their master coaches. And so now, to your other question, Ernest, the way in which I use it within my practice is that I treat it not as a linear process, but as tools within a toolbox that you can leverage depending on the situation. So as a leader, you should really understand your employees well. So how about you focus on the tool that is empathy? How do you gain better empathy for your employees? How do you really listen with empathetic ears? And I work with the folks that I coach just around that tool. Empathy and making sure you truly understand the problems that they offered you. That might be it for you. That might be the totality of what will help you from a design thinking framework.
Yeah.
When you have that empathy and you really understand the problem, you yourself will make better solutions and better choices for that person. Oh, they are riddled with stress at home. They have all these things going on. I didn't even understand that. Now I do. The next time we have this, I'm going to offer them that, half day option or whatever, because I now truly understand and care about their problem, right? So that's kind of how I use it. I use it more as a set of tools within a toolkit that you pick and choose depending on what is presented in front of you.
Do you have an example of how when you've applied this and the results that we can walk through?
I mean, wow, so many. I'll offer one that is fairly more common, and so and actually quite recent. So I worked with the team who they are looking to better. They are about to go live on a research study, a clinical trial, and they were looking for figuring out ways to bring in more African American women over 70 into this clinical trial. They said they just kept stumbling on that. So it was like, hey, can you help us to understand them and get some ideas of how to get them excited about a clinical trial? And so a small team of us went and started to work with women in a couple of Midwestern cities to really understand their thoughts around this topic, their concerns, their fears, their embarrassment, whatever it might be, whatever was the emotional issue around this topic and around clinical trials, right, relative to that demographic.
Yeah.
And then we were able to, it was honestly quite magical, Ernest, if I'm honest. Like, we were able to get to such a deeper level of understanding of the problem that we were able to offer the research team a whole document of, it's not what you think it is. It's this, and this. As you're thinking about marketing, you should be thinking about this, or whatever. We did things like took pictures of different women of that age group and put it in front of them and said, tell us about what this picture says to you. Does this picture resonate? Do you find this picture to be warm and inviting? Something as silly as simple as that was a way for us to get not only their reaction, but the why behind their reaction.
Yeah.
So they may say, oh, this. So for us in design thinking, that is us gathering empathy with the prompt. So the prompt is this picture, but really what we're looking for is the story behind it. Why did you have such a negative reaction? Oh, because everyone was not facing me in the picture and they were laughing. This one person said they were probably laughing at me. And I was like,
wow,
what? This is a stocked image that we got off of Google Image. But for her, she's like, if this was in an ad, I would think that group of women who all were kind of in a circle and like that was just how the picture was taken. She was like, they're probably all talking about and laughing at me. That's what I would think.
That is such a cool tool, because you're getting there at the psychology behind the reaction, right? I think that's such a valuable tool to be able to really help you understand why people are responding the way that they're responding.
And honestly, Ernest, what's so interesting about the fact that you said that, particularly the psychology of it, is design thinking started out of engineering, out of the engineering school. But to your point, it is such a beautiful tool for psychologists.
Yeah.
Because you're learning more at a human level, understanding the psychology of what folks are, what the behaviors you see are a byproduct of some emotional situation that you often gloss over to get to a quick solution. And so that, as an example to offer you, the three of us were like mind blown every time we met with these women, because we were like, I'm sorry, did she just say that? It's like the picture that we took 5 seconds
ago. The stock picture, yeah.
Yeah. And then this other one that blew our mind was this woman was like, well, you want women that are 70, but by 70, we don't even see this as an issue anymore. We've already resigned that that's part of our life at this age. And we were like, what? Because it's actually a quite embarrassing, uncomfortable thing that we were talking about. She was like, yeah, we all just know it's coming to us at some point. So by 70, we don't even pay it any mind anymore. We were like, holy crap. We're thinking, oh, let's help. And they're like, this is not even deep to us anymore.
It's not even a problem for them anymore. Yeah, they don't think about it. Wow.
So those are the types of things that having these tools help you to unlock in a way that a normal conversation you would miss. You wouldn't even get to that level of depth if you were to do it in a traditional kind of ethnographic study or any other tools that we normally have at our disposal, qualitative interviews and all of that. This is a deeper level, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, I love that example because it really highlights the value of the tool, right? And really helps you get to really very helpful information that you wouldn't have got to otherwise. So I think that's such a great tool. I want to ask you a little bit about your focus on women of color, sliding onto that, because I know you have a focus on women of color leaders in higher education. Tell us why that group. Why is that such an important group for you to focus on?
I can remember the moment, honestly, Ernest. So for me, I made this pivot roughly around 2021. And one of the reasons why I made it was that I saw the proliferation of promoting or hiring women of color into these very senior level roles after the murder of George Floyd. And there was this kind of response across multiple industries to like see, we're not whatever. Look, we lifted this person up. She's now the in the C-suite, or she's now whatever. But often that was a very accelerated ascension without the tools to actually be successful to lead at that level. They might have been individuals that were prolific as an individual contributor, might have been the baddest ones on the block for their expertise, but not prepared or given any tools to lead.
Yeah.
And so I saw it across so many industries, entertainment, tech, and what you would see is crash and burn. And not because they were women of color, but because they weren't prepared.
Yeah.
And because they were in such a spotlight that they were not going to ask for help. And the company was just like, go, go, go. We need you at that seat so everyone can see that we're not like the others, or whatever was in their mind to make these types of decisions. And I was like, not on my watch. I cannot continue to allow women of color to crash and burn when it is something as simple as leadership development that will help them to fly. And so I was like, and my colleagues were like, are you crazy? And I was like, I'm not doing I'm not doing any of that. I am just picking a group that I'm watching just be obliterated. And then those companies can say, or organizations, see, I tried. See, it just didn't work. Let's go back to our traditional model. No, not on my watch. So I had to identify for me that it was important. While the people know me, they know I'm passionate for everyone winning in leadership. But what I could not allow is these women who were not properly prepared for these top roles to continue to be obliterated while I'm watching and reading the news. And so I took a slither of all of the groups that I saw, and I went back to my initial passion, higher ed.
Yeah.
And I was watching these women become deans and presidents and provosts. And I said, all right, I'm going back home. And so I decided to focus on them and to focus on really shoring up these women across the U.S., quite honestly, to help them to be really prepared and really positioned well in the back office, because they already have it. They are some of the most brilliant women I've ever interacted with. But when I say to them, let's walk through your retreat agenda, and they're like, they show me this like 10-page laundry list of everything they want to tell folks. I'm like, no, that's going to be a communication you share later. What are we going to do at the retreat? And they're like, what do you mean, LaToya? I'm like, we're just going to go through this laundry list of all the updates that happened over the summer. I'm like, no, we're not. We're going to talk about team development. We're going to talk about what's your goal and what's everyone's role to meet that goal. And they're like, huh? Like, and I'm like, right. Not because you're not smart. No one ever told you that.
Yeah.
And so when you think about kind of where you and I have sat in different corporations, there is a slow, steady upstream to becoming in the C-suite. It is usually accompanied by some leadership development team. It's usually accompanied by some executive coaching as you reach certain notches in the company, right? So that by the time you get to the C-suite, you know these things.
You're prepared. Yeah.
You're prepared. But when you think about higher ed, often the folks, and I'm focused on women of color, but often the people at that senior level, they are amazing, prolific faculty members that are expert in their fields, right? They're not folks that often even come from an administration background. And what I know for sure is the science department is not teaching leadership development, right? So they're preparing professors, they're preparing researchers. They're not preparing someone to think about teams or how you talk to your staff or the way you send emails. That is what, LaToya, that's not even important, LaToya. And I'm like, oh, but it is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I fell into it. And now, while I work with a myriad of other organizations and industries, that is my niche and passion within the space.
I love that explanation. I think that's so critical, and just the thing that you said at the end when they think that's not even important. And I think a lot of people miss that because they don't recognize that the skills that got you there aren't going to take you further, right? Leadership is a whole different
Different.
animal. It's a
That's
whole
right.
different set of skills, a completely different role. And so, for take academia, right? Publish or perish. That's not the skill that you need to lead people,
That's
right?
right.
So people they're not well prepared, and we see this a lot in a lot of industries. And I think this, as you're making the point, is they're not well prepared for this new role. So I love that you're focusing on that. I want to know because, you know, just to be honest, right? Women of color, there's a couple of things there that we need to pay attention to. What are some of the specific challenges that they face in
Yeah.
leadership versus other people that may be having similar experiences?
Sure. And that's a great question. One of the things I did when I decided on this niche was I went on an 18-month listening tour where I interviewed over 30 women 30 women of color to understand that specific question. Like, what's different? What's unique?
Yeah.
I would say the very first thing that is different is they feel very isolated. They are often the only person of color in leadership at meetings, on campus, at that level. And so they feel isolated. Particularly, remember what I said in the beginning, they normally are coming in from another place. So there are communities and groups that are already formed
Yeah.
personally and things like that. They might have their kids grew up together, all this. And here this woman comes that was out in, let's say, Florida, and now moved to Minnesota with her, and she's like, I don't know anyone, and they're already clicked up. So I just
so she's the foreigner in the group. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, a foreigner in so many ways, right? So that's number one. Sometimes, and this is not, I don't want to make this a big generalization, but sometimes those women also come alone from a marital perspective. That many of those women have chosen not to marry or have been so focused on their career that they don't have a family, a nuclear family unit. So they're actually physically also coming alone at home too. So the isolation is different for those women. That's one. Two, they often feel like the communities that they move into are very different than the communities they've come from. Many of those women that were plucked into these big spaces came from urban centers where culture is everywhere. I know where to manage my personal, needs. I know what church options I have because faith is very important to them. All those things then are dissipate when they move into these other communities, and they are like, I don't even have a center, right? A center that I can feel myself.
Yeah, grounded.
Professionally, personally, all of that has been kind of stripped from me in going to this space. And then the other thing is that there is a sense of I have to win at this. I cannot fail. I cannot mess up. There are no missteps allowed. And that weight can be debilitating, right? Particularly adding the factors that I just said, right? And you're doing that with no community, no support, no sounding board, all the things. That weight becomes very debilitating. And so those things in particular, I found to be unique. The last thing I will say is they often don't even know of the resources or tools for their leadership level. They sometimes they've not heard of or experienced peers or colleagues that have had executive coaches. They only know maybe what their conference might do for leadership stuff. Yeah. Some of those schools don't even have a leadership process or program. And so they are like behind the eight ball. One of the jokes I used to offer was like, what was the manual you read? And what did it say? It was like, that manual, I barely got the keys to the office. Like they come in like, so, like illiterate from that perspective. Like they're just like, what? Wait, there's help? And then I'm like, well, yeah, do you have professional development dollars so you can do these different programs? Or that's a thing? Like they're oblivious to all the resources because again, they didn't do this.
Yeah.
And so they're like, tell me, LaToya, what do I ask? What questions do I ask? Because I can't fail at this. But I'm also very stressed, anxious. They get lots of health issues. I spend a lot of time talking about just self-care, making them go, like texting them like, go for a walk now. I don't care. Go for a walk, because I know that this stuff is coming up in their body. and that's going to affect them in other ways. So those are some of the things that I kind of identified as themes as I was working with them and doing my listening tour for those 18 months that were unique. And the last thing I'll say, which is I'm trying to figure out how to say it in a way that would make sense. When we talked about foreign, and I would ask them, like, well, who's an ally? Like, what would you? They often didn't feel like they had any. That I would say, well, what about, other Black women or Black men or Hispanic? Like let's go through the gamut. They really felt like they were a target for everyone.
Yeah.
And so that even made it harder for them because they were like, I can't trust anyone here.
Yeah.
And I can't mess up, but I also don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't want to use the word imposter syndrome because it wasn't that basic. It was at a deeper kind of cellular level, the way that they were feeling like, holy crap, but man, I better stand with my back erect because I cannot lose. If I lose this, we all lose this. And I can't, and again, their words then were like, not on my watch. I gotta keep it up. So
that sounds like a very lonely and just a very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
LaToya, this has been such educational experience for me. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge and experience. I want to ask, how do people get a hold of you if they want to follow up with you or have additional conversations with you? What's a good way of reaching you?
LinkedIn is the best way. So LaToya Jordan on LinkedIn. You'll find me, follow me, do all the things. If you're in higher ed, we actually have a group, a newsletter that you can get connected into. So that would be the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. And then I always want to take advantage of the experts that we have on the show, like yourself, and ask, what's a tip that you have for leaders out there, organizations out there, especially in this time that we're all in after COVID, really?
Yeah, I think the tip that I would give folks out there is to really kind of scan your own self, your body, and identify what truly matters to you, and then live that authentically. Because a lot of people get caught up in the trappings of work or of titles or of things. But when you strip them down, you're like, honestly, what really matters to me most is X. Then you'll start to move differently and your decision making will line up to the things that you truly care about.
Yeah.
And so that would be the thing that I would recommend people. Scan your body, scan your true purpose, and then line up your decisions to that.
I love that because it's really speaking to making sure that you understand what's important to you, what your values are, and making sure that you're spending your energy appropriately to those
That's
values.
right.
I think that's
right,
such great advice. I love that.
Thank you.
LaToya, thanks for coming on. It's been
Thanks for having me. This was such a great conversation, so I appreciate it so much.
Awesome. And if you've enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. Feedback is a gift, and we love gifts. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll join us again next time.